Hello and welcome back to the Fire Drill podcast. This is Alan Shipnuck. It's Sunday. That means Michael Bamberger and Ryan French are online here to do this thing. So, guys, thanks for being here.
Michael with a silent start. He leaned in like he was going to say something. Hello, Alan. Hello, Michael.
Hi. So let's just get into the news of the day here. Rory McIlroy, world number one, where he belongs, right? Like we've talked a lot about Rory this year. I mean, he's been the keynote player. He's been the best player in the world week in and week out. We've talked about him coming up short at the majors. Like, I'd like to go in like a little different direction here, Michael, because I feel like you wrote the first really big feature in the American press about Rory, like going on, 15 years ago. Remember the story I'm talking about? It was on the cover of the Golf Plus Masters preview, and you've always, I know you and Jerry have always had good mojo, and tell the listeners a little bit about Rory that they may not have gleaned from just watching him play golf and listening to his press conferences.
Yeah, but I'm people who follow really closely would know this, but many would not. He's an only child, just as Tiger Woods is, and just as Justin Thomas is, just as Tiger's really not, but with his mom and his dad. His mom had only one child, and Justin Thomas and Michelle Wee, and he was the subject of intense focus from his parents. But it was very different than Earl because they raised him. I know this is ancient history, but it really informs the whole man on why I think so many of us are really drawn to him. They raised him with it's important to win. It's important to, of course, try your hardest and be the best golfer you can, but don't lose sight of your humanity and your soul. And you see it. We've seen it his whole career. We've watched his whole career unfold. He was, I believe, 19 when he first turned pro. He might have been 18, Alan, when we saw him for the first time at Carnoustie when Harrington won. I remember Gary Van Sickle telling me very excitedly, I'd never heard of him. He said, I saw this kid play today. He's like Landy, but he can putt. And it was neat. And Van Sickle, for our listeners who don't know, is a super knowledgeable golf colleague of ours and a good friend and a great guy. But I guess I'm going so far back because today in his victory, you can just see how much the game means to him, the process means to him. And this is not a comment on Liv at all, that nothing is guaranteed or given to you in this game. And, he was a little shaky down the stretch, but he had to use the Tiger where he had the cushion. And so he's easy to root for. And, for him to be the number one player in the game and him to represent the PGA Tour on the world stage right now and to handle all his press obligations and all his intra-office or, within the PGA Tour headquarters obligations so well is a tremendous credit to the game.
It's funny when you think about the last 30 years. I mean, the two biggest stars by far, and even if you go back 40 years, you count Greg Norman, because he was the guy in the late 80s into the 90s. I mean, Tiger and Phil have both had so much controversy and scandal, and they've been so polarizing. Norman as well. But I think Rory McIlroy is the rare athlete that everybody likes and roots for. I'm talking not just in golf, in sports. And of course, there's some Liv loyalists who, maybe take exception to some of the statements Rory has made. But I mean, Ryan, can you think of any athlete in any sport that has the universal respect and admiration that Rory does?
And I think he's done it, guys. What I have loved about Rory is that I don't have to agree with him all the time, that he's relatively outspoken. Liv, social issues, whatever, and still seems to be well liked. And obviously a lot of his views, I would say, obviously politically goes against what a lot of golf fans believe, but still is pretty well respected. I respect the hell out of the fact that he just says, obviously it's toned down a bit. It's not Robert Garrigus style, but it is like he says what he wants. And even if that's not the easy way out. And I think a lot of people respect it. And yeah, I don't know anyone who just like, man, I really hate Rory McIlroy. Like, I don't know why you would.
Alan, it's a good, interesting question. I think that the one maybe equivalent person would be Federer.
Yes.
And, Rory's style is a little bit more excitable than Federer, who's the ultimate, smooth customer. But there's another person who was, long career, talked a lot, as Ryan was saying, was open with his opinions, and it's neat to see Rory following that kind of example. It's been a while since golf has had it.
And even the fact that Rory can't win the big one in some ways makes him more appealing. I mean, it gives us something to critique, and his chipping and pitching wasn't good enough at the old course. That's why he lost that one. And you can, some of his course management decisions at Augusta, and you can go on down the list. Usually we just like winners. We gravitate towards winners. And if you can't win the big one, it's this mortal sin. Of course, he has won 4, but it feels like ancient history. But I think it makes Rory more appealing because we've lived through the age of Tiger where he was the ultimate winning machine, but he gave you so little of himself, unlike Rory. And
I think, again, it goes back to how honest he is. It's just like he talks through that, this stings and those hurt. And it's not like cliche after cliche of like, oh, we have another one in 4 weeks and I got beat by. It's like, hey, yeah, it sucks. And I should be winning more and I don't. So I think if it was, Tiger, as you guys know way better than I do, is the cliche king and just like there's a robot up there for the most of his career. Like Rory's anything but that. And I think despite his success in his lack of success in majors of late, we still like him because he stands up there and says how it is.
And 2 quick notes on that, Ryan. Note number 1 is you're only going to have probably one. If you're Rory McIlroy, maybe you can squeeze in one more, maybe 2 more chances for someone who's from Northern Ireland. Is Irish, identifies himself as Irish, to win an Open Championship on the old course, and then to have it right there and think that you're doing everything right by playing conservative golf and taking a page out of Nicklaus and then not getting it done because the guy shoots 30 on you. That's hard to come back from. And, everything's so compressed now, but it used to be that you'd have a disappointment like that. And, you could crawl into bed for a couple of years before you get over it. So I think that's very significant. And then just one quick stray thought that I wanted to share before I forgot it is years ago when he was only on the tour for, I would say maybe about 2 years. So still really feeling his way out. A friend of mine who was prominent in golf wanted to test the water to see if Rory might be interested in playing the Pebble Beach tournament, the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am with him. And Rory said right there on the spot, it's not on my calendar. It's probably not something I was going to do. And if I were going to do it, I would want to play with my dad or someone that, I have a genuine closeness with. And that's not how most people think, especially, he was only in his early 20s then. So I admired him for that.
Right. Whereas Phil every year played the Clambake, he would play with the CEO, whatever endorsement partner his contract was going to run out on. Like it was purely networking and it was a business decision. And yeah.
Meanwhile, his dad was out there with the periscope. Does anyone see my son?
Yeah. That's such a great pull because for those who never saw Phil Mickelson, and Phil's not a junior because he has a different middle name from his dad, but Phil's old man sold this thing called the Sports Scope because he was frustrated. He couldn't see his son play. And it looked like this homemade kind of cardboard. It was like a, up telescope and you could just watch over people's shoulders. And it was so cute. He was out there selling these for years on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that's funny. And they banned him at certain events. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah. This is why I'm so lucky. People always ask me, like, what's this like? I had no clue about that. Okay. Zero. And this is why it's such an honor to sit here. But I'm nothing about Phil Mickelson Sr. We haven't talked about Michael's shirt yet. Okay.
Okay. Well, quick note about my shirt. And it's the following. Phil Mickelson Sr. is one of the gentlest, quietest, most humble people you could ever possibly want to meet. You would never in a million years expect that Phil would be his son. Phil is Phil? Yeah. Phil's parents are 2 really great people.
His mom's an extrovert, but you're right. The dad is so taciturn. And to tell you something about the Mickelson family.
He's what? Whoa. You can't just throw words like taciturn. What'd you say?
Taciturn. Ryan, come on.
Come on. What is that?
You're not fooling us.
No, I swear to God, I don't know what I assume it means quiet. And
yeah. But no, to speak of the Mickelsons, to give you some insight into what the parents are like, when the Open was at Bethpage, I saw them on the train. They were commuting in and out of Manhattan, like with all the fans. You know, they weren't in a town car. They were just like on the train.
And as you know, Alan, but Ryan might not, frugal like you wouldn't believe. That town car is $100. There's no way. I can just imagine it.
It's about what it was, because I know that, because those are the glory days of the SI expense account.
I just typed in taciturn, what I thought would be taciturn.
Turt. Not even spelling it right.
Isn't it?
Taciturn.
I mean,
there's an N at the end, Ryan.
Oh, turn. Taciturn. Wow.
Ryan, how did that English SAT score go? Oh, no, you're in Michigan. You don't take the SAT.
It would take the ACT. It didn't go great. Taciturn, reserved or uncommunicative in speech, saying little.
You want to hear a shocker? Shipnuck's got a wicked high math SAT score, I believe. Is that true?
Is that true, Alan?
Yeah.
By his shrug, it's obvious. He's just like, yeah, I'll tell it in a minute
whatever.
after I play it.
It's ancient history. Nobody cares. Listen,
I care. What was it?
Again, many people are just going to listen to this podcast. They're not actually going to see Michael's shirt, which appears to have giant paisleys, but from a certain orientation, they kind of, sorry, Michael, they kind of look like, sperm in the Petri dish when they're trying to be free. Yeah.
I feel way underdressed. I know that. I was like, I'm in sweatpants, just took a shower, threw on my Golf Tech hat, threw on a Golf Tech t-shirt. I come down and Michael is like pristine the starch coming off of that thing. It's like he went to the dry cleaners, it's like full starch. And they're like, full? And he's like, yeah, full. The fucking thing could stand up by itself. Just like, I'm not sure Michael's in that thing.
He's green screen.
I'm out.
Yeah, he's out. He's gone.
All right. Well, this is theoretically a golf podcast. Let's try and get back to the golf here, guys.
Okay. Can I, Alan, since it is theoretically a podcast, emphasis on the word theoretical, would you mind if I introduce the subject?
Please.
Well, our company, the Fire Pit Collective, is based in San Diego. I live in Philadelphia. I am the Philadelphia Bureau, and we've had a very good series. It was very well played. I went to last night's game. Today, the Phillies are, clinched the National League Championship. They're going to the World Series for the first time in 2009. And there are a lot of parallels and a lot of differences between golf and baseball. But something sort of became like the emotion that I felt just watching the Phillies play their way into the World Series again. First, it shows you no matter how far away you get from baseball, it will, like they say in that movie, it will pull you back in. Once you got the care gene. But what I'm trying to say is, and this is so obvious, Alan, I know you've thought about live every which way, but I haven't really heard this conversation. Is golf even meant to be a global game? And the reason I say that is because the fan base for baseball is so parochial. And now Japan has its own World Series. We don't know anything about it, but the people in Japan care a great deal about it. And I just wonder, is like a starting point, if this live series actually even makes sense, because it is what Norman has always wanted to be, in effect, a global golf tour. And maybe sports aren't really set up for that, because aside from the Olympics, Formula One, maybe, what really is? Alan?
Yeah, I think golf has always been more global. Obviously the Open Championship is the oldest tournament, and it's forever drawn Australians and South Africans and South Americans, and it's been played everywhere. And unlike the sports you mentioned, the players, how many Australian Opens did Jack Nicklaus win? I think 5 or 6. These guys have always traveled, even when it wasn't so easy. So Norman would probably say that what he's doing, instead of having a Japanese World Series and an American World Series and a Dominican World Series, we're going to bring it all under one roof. And now it might be, maybe it's not a great idea as you're suggesting, but I think there is a global appetite. But like one of the greatest sporting events I ever went to was the All-Star game in the winter leagues, Venezuelan baseball. It was absolute madhouse. It was so much fun. I was there because Jonathan Vegas threw out the first pitch, and I was doing a big feature about his return to Venezuela and all the complicated politics that surrounded that. And that's an incredible story. But, I just remember sitting there because I grew up going to Giants games at Candlestick Park when it was frigid and just thinking, I wish the Giants games were this much fun, and people were playing the drums and they're dancing in the aisles, and it was just the play-by-play guy was out of control on the mic for the whole stadium. And so I think, there's a chance these sports can have their own little bits of flair regionally, but baseball is baseball, golf is golf. I mean, it does cross borders. So I hear what you're saying, but I feel like golf has always been a global sport, and we've had World Golf Championships now since the 90s. Like, I don't know. I think the toothpaste.
Yeah, but they've always sucked.
Yeah, I'm with Ryan. No one cares.
They've always sucked.
Al, the examples that you're giving are I think, prove it the other way. I mean, a few times a year, the whole golf world comes together, and we really care. But if you start really drilling in, would Tom Lehman have rather won, or Justin Leonard, Ben Curtis, Todd Hamilton? You give them one major championship to win the Open, the British Open, or the U.S. Open. Of course, those guys are all going to pick the U.S. Open. And for Rory and other people, if you can only give them one, they'd win that British Open in a heartbeat. So I wouldn't really agree with that. I think we are just wired to be regional.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have to give that some thought. I mean, for sure, it makes no sense to go to a place like Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where there's no history, there's no fan base, and that was reflected by the total apathy of the local fans. But if you take it to places that have great golf tradition, I think I think it's got potential. But I don't know. It's an interesting argument, Michael. I hadn't really given it too much thought.
Okay, I have a question before we get to my question that we prepared for, and we never prepare for anything. I sent a picture to Michael and Alan and said we were going to talk about this, but this is not it. As golf fans, okay, today we're all like, oh, Rory won, Rahm was in the mix, how great it was, right? Look at Alan is like, think this is going to be a smart-ass comment. I can tell by your smirk, and it's not. It's not going to be a smart. It's actually going to be an actually question. So it's a no-cut event, right? And we're all like, oh, this is great. Rory and Rahm are in the thing, right? Now, let's take the political side of LIV out. Why is LIV not working? Because they had they had a great leaderboard last in Saudi Arabia. And obviously there's time and whatever. And we're all slamming it as like no-cut event and blah, blah, blah. And me included. I'm not saying just all of us. That's what we had today. It's a no-cut event. It's the World Golf Classic, basically. And the field, like everybody's like, oh, the LIV field, the bottom half. Go look at the bottom half of the CJ Cup today. Trust me, there is some bad golf being played, okay? 2 dudes shot 20 over, okay? And another dude shot 17 over. There's plenty of bad play. Why are we giving them a pass? And I include myself in that. Like, it was a LIV event with a few more players and a few more holes being played.
Well, and Ryan, just a very good question, but just starting to work 1 second. I'm not for a minute writing off LIV or its future because I don't mean writing it off. I think they've shown very good application of intelligence and money to date. I actually think it's amazing the year that they've had for that first year.
Michael, I don't mean us in general. I'm talking like golf people in general. Like, oh, it was Brooks and DJ. Like, whoa, dude, it was Brooks and DJ, right? Like, I agree. They've made way more. I think we all admit, and anyone who has a reasonable, take a minute, it's like they've made inroads.
Well, to your point, Ryan, I mean, there's so much shouting in the conversation about LIV and the tour, and a lot of the nuance gets lost. And, the fact is a lot of the tour events are really weak. They just are. And people don't want to acknowledge that. I mean, there's the players who are in those events, like in the fall, whatever, it's life-changing for them and they're playing their hearts out, but they don't have the pedigree. And so that exists without a doubt. But I mean, I don't think anyone's pretending the CJ Cup is a big time event, but when you get Rahm and you get Rory, it's exciting. And the question is when you get Cam Smith against Brooks, why is that not so exciting on LIV? I mean, to me, part of it is the lack of TV presentation. It just feels small time on YouTube, and that definitely, I think, affects how we think about it. And it's completely, there's some inconsistency.
Hey, I just got a, Jake, you can do whatever you want with this, but I just got a text. They are playing a fucking Pro-Am at the final stage of Q School.
What?
What? What?
Has it ever happened before?
Never. I literally just got a text from an agent. Final stage of Q School official Pro-Am.
How much does it cost to play in the thing? I'd like to get in it.
I mean, but
we could fly home, Michael, and play in it.
That's unbelievable.
Leave this in, Jake. That's insane, right? That's insane.
I can't even process that. But like the LPGA they were having Pro-Ams during their majors for a long time. I mean,
okay, majors is bad. Q School? Q School is way worse than majors.
Right.
By the way, who is gonna sign up for that? In other words, this is the tensest week of the player's life. Who in the right mind is going to want to play with a golfer?
That's the problem. The people who are going to sign up will have no clue what that week means, and they're just like, "Well, that guy was pretty much a jerk."
Wow, that's so intense.
Like he
writing his little book. Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed to be stressed out. I thought this was a Pro-Am where the guy's supposed to shake my fucking hand. Like, this isn't the Sanderson fucking Farms.
The classy thing to do would be for a group of guys to sign up and then not play.
Yes.
Then the guy can just have a practice round.
Right.
Yeah, but then you're just donating money to the PGA Tour. I don't know. That
on Marshfield course, approximately 10 teams starting at approximately 8:30 to 10:31 on a Wednesday, November 6th. Two teams comprised of 1 professional and 3 amateurs at fucking Q School.
Not just 3 amateurs, 3 hackers.
Like, anyone who knows that they shouldn't sign up is not going to sign up. The people who are going to sign up is the 35 handicapper who's like, of course I'd love to play with a pro golfer for $5,000. That seems like great.
Alan, you have lawyers in your family. Do you think that's a tax deduction? If you play in a Pro-Am where the PGA Tour was the nonprofit PGA Tour was the beneficiary, could you write it off?
Well,
yes.
I mean, usually when you play, if you play in the first Tee Open, you're making the check out to the Monterey Peninsula Foundation.
That's different,
and they're the charitable arm. Now, I don't know. Is there a designated charitable beneficiary for Q School? I mean, that's an interesting question.
Ryan, does it say on the form checks payable to Jay Monahan?
I mean, it just is like in there. It's a letter from, just bullet points, where to park, blah, blah, blah. And then just thrown in the middle, it just says Pro-Am. Pro-Am? I'm stunned. I don't even know what to say.
Well, I mean, we jest, but the tour is draining their reserves. They've put all their chips into the middle of the table. They just built whatever $100 million headquarters, whatever that final cost was. Like, you've been talking about they're raising the prices at Q School. They're doing this, doing that. I mean, it's possible that someone is sounding the alarm in Ponte Vedra Beach saying, guys, like, we are at a serious revenue deficit and we need to make every $500,000 we can and any which way. So it seems totally bizarre, but if you look in the context of the tour's never shelled out this much money. And
oh my God.
For a devalued product. I mean, who knows?
Wow. I am going to do an article and interview the 50 amateurs as they come off of the course. Like, wow, that guy was a real jerk. He seemed pretty stressed out. And I was like, I thought this was fun. Where's Tiger Woods? Holy shit. Unbelievable. Anyway, that is wild.
Well, so one thing I want to talk about, just because, kind of rounding up the week a little bit, and we were guilty of not giving enough airtime to our great friends on the LPGA, but Lydia Ko won over in Korea. She's leading the points race and the scoring title, and she's having another banner year. Really, you have to go back to like 2016 when she was playing at this level. And Lydia Ko is one of my favorite people in golf, and when I think about her as a teenager, that was the purest, most natural golf I've ever witnessed with my own eyes. Like, she just made it look so easy, totally unencumbered by swing thoughts, just had an incredible feel for the game and a Jordan Spieth-like ability to get the ball in the hole from unusual places. And so I'm delighted that she's back, to being a superstar once again. And I just wanted to give her a shout out. And I'm not sure how much you guys
Michael,
have
how old, without looking, how old is Lydia Ko? Michael's frozen in time.
No, I don't want to make a bad guess. I'm not old.
Okay. All right. Alan gave it I thought Alan might know, but since he's in on it, but go. Fire away.
Oh God, it's going to be embarrassing. 26.
Alan?
That's a great guess.
She's 25. Does she not feel like she's been part of our lives for
she has
ever?
Yeah.
I would be like, it just shows how young the women's game is she has been forever, but I'm saying you would think I would, if I didn't know, because I know, but 32,
she was
33.
in majors 10 years ago as an amateur, I believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
She's fabulous. When you see her in person, you can't believe how slender she is, and to hit it as far as she does. It really just shows you what mechanics will do. Yeah,
the efficiency. This is what I can't pinpoint the year. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I spent a day with Lydia in San Francisco because it's sort of a joint venture between her people at IMG and LPGA. They wanted to film this fun video. So the idea was she would play a made-up golf course through San Francisco, all these, iconic spots. She would hit a putt down Lombard Street, and we hit a tee shot off of Alcatraz. It was a great idea, but it turned out to be an incredibly long day because it's not easy to get around San Francisco and the park and get the film crew. And it was like we basically went from dawn to dusk for what turned out to be a very short little social media video, but she was so delightful. And as we're driving around, there's this great mural, and it's got Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Jerry Garcia, and I'm trying to think who else is on there. A bunch of
perhaps Tony Bennett.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Tony Bennett was on it. But all these musicians who have passed through San Francisco and played an important part. And so we quizzed her, and she didn't know a single one of them, which is not, she was 16, but it was just so funny. And was she that young when you did this? She might have been 18, but wow. She was still. I think she was late. Yeah, she was a teenager. Was it the swinging skirts event they used to have? Yeah, I think it was pegged to that. That was a great event at Lake Merced. Which, funny enough, I may have wangled an invite. Gil Hance just redid it, and it reopened yesterday. And I saw some people playing on social media, so I hit them up. It's closed to guests and throughout the end of this year. But I'm like, you got to make exception for reporters. We're trying to build some buzz for you. So
let me in.
Yeah.
Maybe they're afraid that you won't like it, and they know that you're a pathological truth teller when it comes to reviews.
I like the old Lake Merced. In fact, it's a scene until, and we can touch on this or not, but since our last podcast, I did make my first hole-in-one, and but
there is some Twitter debate.
I know. We'll get into that. But the most devastating near miss of my entire life was I played in the Pro-Am at the Swinging Skirts with Christina Kim. And I think it's the third hole. It's a steeply downhill par 3. Pin was way on the right. And Christina's like, the only way to hit this close is you have to land it on the fringe right of the hole, and it'll go dead sideways towards the flag. And one of the rare times in my life, I did exactly what I was trying to do. And it was tracking the whole way, and the people behind the green were getting excited, and we were dead silent, and it lipped out, did an act. You could see a horseshoe. I still have a glass I won for closest to the pin, and I fell to my knees in anguish because it looked so good. And it was like a slow trickle. It was agonizing. We had so much time to watch it play out. So
I'm going to ask the question before Ryan does. Did you make the putt?
I made the putt. Yeah, I made the putt. It expired 4 inches away. It was so painful because there's probably 50 people out there, and Christina, who I'm great friends with, and that would have been an epic first one. But so let's get into the debate. So I was playing the 100-hole hike. We were at the Peter Hay Golf Course in Pebble Beach, and so yes, it's the holes are short. The one I happened to knock it in was, I think, 61 yards. So I fully understand those who think it should have an asterisk, but after a lifetime of near misses and bad luck, I'm like, screw it, man. I'm counting it. I've already ordered the plaque. You can't take it away from me.
Here is my thing. This is my take, coming from a person who had a hole-in-one on a par 3 course. Now, it was 2 times as long as your hole-in-one, but here is, I always say this is, if the person who made the hole-in-one thinks it's a hole-in-one, it's a fucking hole-in-one. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I think I made a hole-in-one. Like, I could care less what JJ Colleen thinks. JJ's a great dude and a fun guy and hilarious, but he doesn't have to think that I made a hole-in-one. I was there. I made one.
I think, Ryan, I think that's a great definition. I totally agree with it. And I was, as you were saying, I think just to fine tune a little bit, but your definition is perfect. If you've got a story to tell about the one that you made, it is a hole-in-one. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a story to tell.
Well, JJ had one of the most biting Twitter comments of all. He said, of my ace, nice chip in.
That's not true. It was a sawed-off lob wedge or sand wedge. You held it held high or a little higher, and that toe was turning over. That's not a fair comment.
Yeah, no, I know, but it was so funny. But also, I mean,
he should be told, Alan, and you know this to be true, and I got this straight from Tom Weisskopf, who knows, it's a chip if it spends more time on the ground than in the air, and that certainly did not. So I reject that criticism completely.
Thank you, Michael. And we all know that there's there's plenty of weird hole-in-ones where it gets a funky bounce. This is the hardest green by far at Peter Hay. It's extremely shallow.
I appreciate this cell job so much. I really do it.
What did Tiger say to you about it?
Yeah, I know. I almost considered texting Mark Steinberg and being like, "Hey, I made an ace on Tiger's golf course. Can I get him on the phone to talk about the making of that golf hole?"
Why did you not just text Tiger directly?
Yeah, well, like Phil, he changes his number a lot.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah. But no, so let's get back to my ace. Let's stay focused here. Let's laser focus.
This might be the rest of the podcast.
It's of 3 parts. If we're just gonna, so it's like extremely shallow green, and it has this big swale on the left side, and they have the pin front right. If you went at the flag, it was impossible to hold the green. Big false front. Guys most people weren't even hitting the green on this one. So you had, after playing a few times, like, okay, you got to aim 3 or 4 yards left, hit into that hill, and spin it back. And I actually did exactly that. I think
you should have left off the fact that you played it 3 or 4 times as part of your defense.
Well, I know. No, I played it more than that, actually.
The first 4 or 5 times I played it.
But yeah, so no, this came up also. In fact, it was the 8th time or 9th time I played it, because it was my 80th hole of the day of the 100-hole hike. But if you're a member at a club, or if it's just your local muni, you play a lot, like, you know the greens. Like, so Ryan, you get to a par 3 at the Alpena Country Club or golf club or golf course, and if the pin's back left, you know how you have to play it. So I'm saying it's the same thing. Yeah. I had some institutional knowledge, but everyone has that on a course they know well.
Alan, I'm here to give you shit. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you count it as a hole-in-one, it's a hole-in-one. Yeah. Michael and I have talked about the 3rd hole behind my house way too much over the last 2 weeks. I went out there and played that hole, only that hole, a lot of times. And if I would have knocked one in, I would have called it a fucking hole-in-one. It was a 170-yard hole. Yeah. I mean, you want to call your 60-yard lob wedge that you played 9 times and you knew exact break and all that stuff a hole-in-one, fucking call it a hole-in-one.
Well, when you put it like that, geez.
Yeah. Here's the proof of how much I agree with Ryan. I was playing with a great friend of mine, Fred Anton, years ago, the late Fred Anton. We started at number 10 at the Philadelphia Cricket Club, short par 3. I made a bogey. He made an X. He said, I'm not counting it. I said, well, I made a bogey. I'm counting it. So we came through again. And so now he's playing a 19th hole, and he made a 1. That counts. Well, in his mind, it counted.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, and the extenuating circumstance in this is that I told people I was doing the 100-hole hike. I said, if I don't make an ace, I'll donate $1,000 to Youth on Course. So there was a lot at stake. By the time you get to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 holes, and every single time you step on the tee, you're trying to make one.
And we sent some poor bastard cameraman, John, out there. I was like, okay, dude. And he's like holding the camera up again.
Poor
like,
guy. I know.
All right.
Is that how they got that? Do they have every shot filmed?
Every shot. Yeah. At some point, there'll be like
Every
a super
shot.
cut of all 100 holes.
That poor bastard.
No, but John Figueroa, shout out to him. He was great because the preceding 8 or 9 or 10 holes before I actually dunked one was by far the best I hit it all day. Like I was peppering it at the flag, and I was like, well, I can't do any better. I can't do better than this.
Michael, as our wordsmith of the threesome, can we use the word dunked on a 61-yard shot? We can't use fired when Frank Licklider shoots 82. Can we use dunked on a 61-yard shot?
Well, no. The only time you dunk a one is if the thing, very rarely happens. If it goes in on the flag, it goes down the flag stick. That's dunking it. Short of that, you hold it out.
Yeah. No, so John Figueroa, the camera guy, like
you can jar it.
Yeah, I didn't even. I spun it in. I read it perfectly. John's like, it's gonna happen. I can feel it. It's coming. And I want to say, fuck you, John. It's not coming. Yeah. Like, stop taunting me. He was dead serious. Like, he's a very positive person. But his energy kind of sustained me. So I give him a lot of credit for sure.
Oh my God, Michael, how many do you have?
I have only one, just one.
Yeah.
Now I've got others. That don't count.
Wow.
Oh, it's so good.
Why do they not count, Michael? Just break my heart.
You weren't playing a proper round, or you're just goofing around.
Multiple shots. Is 100 holes a proper round?
Ryan, I'm going for the rest of my life. I'm going with your definition.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, again, like there's plenty of people who think mine is not a hole in one. I'm all good. I was hitting off a mat from 115, double what Alan shot. But
not quite.
I mean, I count it. I mean, it doesn't matter. Alan counts it. It's a hole in one to me because it's a hole in one.
Count it, but I do look forward to justifying it.
Yes,
on a real golf course, regular 18 holes.
Alan, who's doing the work at Lake Merced?
Gil Hans. Alistair McKenzie worked on that course in bits and pieces because he was doing Cypress Point down the road.
Who's he credited to?
Geez, that I'm not positive. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they have some great old photos of the original bunkering, and they brought it back, and it looks really pure.
You know what Tom Doak says of these renovation projects? Most clubs prefer it the way it was before we got there. Now, I have to. In total fairness to Tom, I've got to edit that. Not we, like Tom, like any architect. He's broadly speaking, and he's done some very good renovation work. But it's hard. It's hard to do renovation work.
I'm googling. Lake Merced was originally developed
by Willie Locke.
Willie Locke, 1922. Reworked by Alistair McKenzie later that decade. But then in the 60s, Interstate 280 came along and they lost some holes. Robert Muir Graves came in and did it. So it's been a mishmash of different people. So I think this is a more unified version of it.
Ryan, I did not know Willie Locke, but Jake did, or Jake looked it up.
Oh, I was going to say,
I've never heard of Willie Locke.
No, I know.
I'm embarrassed to say.
If for those who don't know the geography of San Francisco, Olympic Club, Lake Merced, San Francisco Golf Club, and Cal Club are all basically adjoining. There's very few places on the planet that have such great golf in such close proximity. There's some corners along Island, obviously the Monterey Peninsula.
Let's not forget the Kentish coast of England.
Yeah, there's a handful.
Royal Ports on a row. Alan, have you played the? I don't even know if it's still open. The par 3 course at Olympic in the dunes there.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, they've gone back and it is open. I mean, they've always wanted to make that even more spectacular given the setting, but the California Coastal Commission hasn't. They've kind of put the kibosh on some different ideas, but it is really neat.
I don't know, someone who's logged a lot of time in San Francisco. If you could only join one of those San Francisco clubs, which one would you want to join?
Well, Cal Club, because it's by far the most fun and it's an amazing golf course. San Francisco's, I probably like that golf course a little bit better, but it's very old school and not kind of my vibe. Cow Club's fun, but I'd be happy with any of them.
Did you guys know that Yannick Paul had a twin? Did you know Yannick Paul when he won today? Yannick Paul won today on the European Tour.
Yeah, no, he made it awesome. 70-second hole birdie. Yeah, huge putt. No, I didn't know that until today. I saw it on social media.
He's a very nice guy. Him and his brother are German and played at Colorado. Really nice guys. Played on the Outlaw Tour in 2020. I mean, I posted a picture in Michael's back to Michael's point about golf meaning something. Like this guy, I posted today in 2020, just over 2 years ago. The guy was making checks for like $338 on the Outlaw Tour, and that's not including the fact that he paid a $900 entry fee to get into that tournament. So he's really negative $600 plus travel costs. And so obviously that putt is awesome. That's why I love golf. But here's the not so serious side of it. So he has an identical twin. And when I say identical, they are identical. Their golf coach, who I've talked to many times at Colorado, last name Edwards, is like, I can't tell them apart. They were both on the Korn Ferry Tour. In a Pro-Am, they switched the brothers on the tee, and no one in the group knew. Okay?
Huh.
So here's the question. You're leading. Yannick Paul was leading after the third round. He goes to the bathroom and pulls his groin, or is walking to the thing and pulls his groin. His whole career is in the balance. His brother Jeremy is a very good player in his own right. Do you send your twin brother to play the final round? No one would know. No one would know.
I mean, obviously, if we're going to go by the code of golf and all that.
Yes, of course not.
Of course not. But I would say go for it. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They'd be telling this story for the rest of their lives. I mean,
my God, it'd be unreal.
Curtis Strange has a brother, Alan Strange, who was absolutely identical back then, especially. And at the '88 U.S. Open, Alan came up to watch the last round, and he got there early. And he was there with his buddies, and they're walking around drinking beers. And people are like, "Yeah, I don't think Curtis has got much of a chance today. He's half in the bag already."
Well, I mean, did you guys ever see the fake Klay Thompson?
Oh yeah. He got all the way into the Golden State. Yeah.
This Golden State Warriors fan who looked very much like Klay Thompson facially, but he was about 50 pounds heavier. But he would get mistaken for Klay, and he would sign autographs. And then he went down onto the court and shot around, and no one said anything. So, but he finally got pinched and banned. But yeah, that's a wild idea.
If you're the biggest moment of your life, hanging in the balance, and you break your ankle, right? And you're like, I can't go. I'm gonna, he just changed his life today. It would have at least have to cross your mind. Your brother's a very good golfer, and you're just like, hey man, you're gonna have to here's what Kurt and I talked about yesterday, this is it. Go get him, Tiger. And off he goes.
Ryan? What would you do with the caddy in that situation? Would you let him in on it? And then make him culpable?
I mean, obviously, he's going to get 20%, right? And instead of 10, and we're all just going to move on.
It would be funnier if the caddy didn't know.
That would be amazing.
I mean, if the golf coach can't tell their swings apart, then I doubt the caddy could either.
Nothing. The Korn Ferry Tour did a thing, and literally the guys played a hole with a different brother. There was a blind tee shot, and he's like, I'm going back to the tee. And the other brother got up on the tee and played the entire hole with him. And no one knew.
Well, no, I know. I mean, I grew up playing basketball with these twins, the Amarals. I could never tell them apart. To this day, I still can't. It's so trippy.
Right. Anyway, Yannick Paul, great. I mean, Jeremy's very nice too, but Yannick's a great guy. I'm super happy for the guy.
Now, does anybody, don't look it up, know who won the senior tour in Richmond today?
Ooh, I know that Elker was tied. This is a guess because I don't know Elker. Steve Elker.
Yeah, I didn't even check. My bad.
Oh my God, Alan.
Steve Elker.
He did?
He did win, and I spoke to him for about an hour on Tuesday, and it was mostly a pep talk. It was like, Steve, you can
go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, I know you've been struggling, but come on.
Bob Rotella would take like 4% of the victory check just for that 1 hour. So I think,
No,
this guy has won more. He's won over $3 million this year.
it's an awesome story. Awesome.
It is actually now. Ryan, were you aware of him as a Monday Q guy?
Yeah, I mean, Michael, he's in this position because of a Monday Q. So he Monday Q into a senior event and won like 6th, 3rd, 2nd, 5th, whatever. It's impossible to gain status on the Champions Tour. You really got to like play well. And he played. He never looked back. One Monday Q changed his life. I mean, it's been a wild ride. Second of all, always talk about surreal moments. Michael Bamberger asking me for a phone number of a player was pretty awesome. All right. This guy has a Rolodex is loaded with people. And he's like, hey, Ryan, do you have Steve Valkers? I was like, I might give it to you, Michael. I'm not sure. Yeah, I suppose I can get it.
Alan asked me for Dow Finsterwald last year, a while back. He's like, I don't think this is likely, but do you have Dow Finsterwald by any chance? I was like, Dow Finsterwald, that's easy. I mean, give me something with a little more. Ask for like VJ. That would be challenging.
That would be. Just think, you being Elker sports psychologist. My favorite quote ever about sports psychologists. When I did a big feature on Kevin Na for Sports Illustrated back when he was really in the wilds and so haunted. And I said, why haven't you worked with sports psychologists? He's like, they're all Captain Obvious. They tell you something you already know and they charge you $500. He's like, I don't need them. I was like, well said.
Who said that?
Kevin Na.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think Kevin Na must be pretty strong. Because he doesn't have much, and he stayed out there a long time. He must. Well,
and he's dealt with really demons. Yeah.
How old was he? Well, he was probably 18, 19 when he turned pro. 18. That's a long, long, long time to stay out there when you don't really hit it very far at all. It's impressive, Well, just one quick note about Alker. So, I'm asking him all sorts of different ways. How did you do it? And he's giving me really thoughtful answers, and I'm writing them down as fast as I can. And then an old friend of mine said, well, how do you do it? So I said all the things that Alker told me, when he was 48 and a half, he came up with this program to get really good and focus on this and equipment and fitness and blah, 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 blah. And I recited it all to my friend who's 88 years old. And he said, they all say that. He did it. It's like, wow. That is a tremendous insight. So I didn't use any of that in the story because I realized, they all do that. And this guy did it. And here's the answer. There is no answer. If there was an answer, other guys would play good.
Yeah,
but exactly.
He's an awesome. I mean, the fact that he won, he really has changed his life. That dude, I don't know if he told you, Michael, but was 0 for 22 or 0 for 23 the in a row. Had missed 23 cuts in a row when he won on the court for a year.
Wow.
And, and back to your point of, short hitters and, he's a tiny little guy and doesn't hit very far. Obviously that doesn't matter as much on the senior tour, but just the fact that he could sustain his career to get to the point of getting to the senior tour. So, good on him. That dude is he is exactly who the Champions Tour does not want winning this Charles Schwab Cup. I will tell you that.
I don't know. Well, I'm sure that's right, but it's also neat to see that it can. Golf is definitely the dream machine, and this, this is great. Just like Tom Lehman was, when he was 30 and going to crack an egg, just like Hogan was, and it's happened many, many times through golf history. Guys figure it out when you're least expecting them.
I will tell a quick Tom Lehman story. Third hand, he was playing by himself, and a guy was playing by himself behind him and caught up to him. And was like, hey, do you mind if I play with you? And he said, no, not at all. And striping it, making birdies left and right. And he said, oh, what's your name? And he said, Tom Lehman. I'm thinking about quitting. I'm a pro golfer, but I'm thinking about quitting. But my wife is pushing me to continue to play. And I'm going to give it one more shot. And the next year, went on to the whatever it was, Ben Hogan Tour, dominated, and boom, that's it.
Well, the best Tom Lehman story is that when he was really, really, really struggling, had no money, and was leaving a tournament on a Sunday and was all grungy, and it started pouring rain. He's like, you know what? Screw it. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford a hotel. Jumps out into the rain with a bar of soap and takes a shower in the cold, freezing rain, rinses off and keeps going. Like when you're showering in the rain, like that's the Monday lifestyle.
Didn't he sell his clubs to get home on time or something like that? Isn't there a legend?
I don't know that, but I hope it's true. That's awesome.
Go ahead, Michael. Do you have a Tom Levy story?
I'm not sure I have the story. Alan might know it. Isn't there a thing where was he the Minnesota golf coach at one point? And he said, yeah, you got to run the shop. And he said, all right. He said, yeah, you got to rent out the cross-country skis in winter. He's like, all right,
yeah. That's part of the legend. I've never fact-checked it, but that's always been attached to him for sure. Well,
he's like, all right, I'm not doing the fucking cross-country skis. All right.
It's been another pleasantly discursive podcast. I think we should release the listeners, but let me give a quick shout out to our corporate sponsors who help us keep the lights on here at the Fire Pit Collective. Of course, Par Points, by now, is our favorite golf scoring app, and it really does make the game fun and interesting. And I would encourage anyone to download the app, check it out, and especially, of course, you play a lot with your buddies. Like if you're looking for a way to spice things up, it's undefeated. And then Dormy Workshop, makers of beautiful handmade leather goods. If you go to firepitcollective.com and you click on the Pit Shop tab, you can see some of our collaborations, but they do many, many things beyond that. So if you're looking for a head cover or something for your glove or for your whatever you might want, Dormy is the place to check it out. So,
Alan, you didn't use the word you customarily use, artisanal.
Yeah, I was so mad about that.
Because your pronunciation of it is so sui generis. I love it when you use it.
All right. Well, I'll scroll that away.
Hazard? What? Dessert? What the hell was that word we used earlier?
Taciturn?
Taciturn.
Yeah. So these Fire Drill podcasts are happening every Sunday, and going forward, hopefully Ryan will be more taciturn. But until then, we're going to close this one out. I'm Alan Shipnuck. That was Ryan French and Michael Bamberger. Thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate you guys out there, and we'll do it again soon. Thanks.